Hello and welcome. I hope you're having a great day. In this topic, we're going to cover how barter works with larger businesses, and specifically, how the math works when you want to buy products or services you find on the barter pay system. We have a concept called price versus cost, which simply means, when you barter, it's important to understand your costs when comparing the price tag of the items or services you're looking to purchase through barter. Typically with small businesses, the selling and buying decision is made by one or two decision makers who are working together, and they can quickly come up with the best overall decision. However, in larger businesses where the selling and buying negotiation and decisions are split between different departments and different decision makers, it's even more important for your team to understand how the math works. Before we get into the nuts and bolts of price versus cost, it's important to remember that we don't have every business in the world on barter pay. That's obviously not a realistic target, so there's a possibility we will not have the lowest prices on our system at times. Sometimes we will, sometimes we won't. Also, a quick reminder here. There are things that you cannot barter for, like your mortgage, fuel, or taxes, and all those types of things that you do need Canadian dollars for. So, being aware that we're not always going to have the lowest price, there are definitely times it does happen that the barter member giving you a quote is both the lowest price and also the lowest cost. But it's important to do an analysis when we're looking at whether or not their quote is the best option from a mathematical standpoint. Looking at a general example, let's take a restaurant that has a 37.05% cost of goods, which is right around where restaurants would normally be. Then you have the barter pay fees, which are 12.95%. Now let's imagine you need to renovate the bathrooms at your restaurant. After filtering down to just contractors you trust, these are all quotes from different contractors. You get one quote for $20,000, one for $22,000, one for $25,000, and those are all in Canadian dollars. Then you have another $23,000 quote from a contractor who's willing to accept a portion of their quote in barter credits. So, they have a $23,000 quote of which $10,000 is payable in barter. In a typical pricing scenario, the first instinct would be to go with the quote for $20,000, assuming they're all providing a similar quality of service. However, when barter credits are introduced as part of a quote, all the quotes are not exactly comparable anymore. The $23,000 quote isn't actually a $23,000 cost as it appears. It's important to do an analysis of the $10,000 that the contractor wants to accept in barter credits. If we convert it, we have $13,000 which will be paid in Canadian dollars to that contractor. We then have to look at the $10,000 payable in barter credits and say, okay, well, what is our cash cost to earn back that barter? Well, regardless of whether any extra customers walk into your restaurant, you have fixed costs such as heat, hydro, and staff who are already there managing your regular traffic. So those costs are ongoing regardless. Your incremental cost is your food and beverage costs. You wouldn't have to add more heat, hydro, and staff if someone sent you around $10,000 more in business over time, for example. Adding a few new customers here and there doesn't impact those fixed costs. So your fixed cost would be 37.05%, as I mentioned in my example that I've got here. And then our fees are 12.95%. So, the $10,000 would convert into approximately $3,700 of food cost and approximately $1,300 worth of fees to barter pay. Those two numbers together are $5,000. So now we've got a total of $13,000 plus $5,000 equals $18,000. So now, you're comparing apples to apples on a currency basis. You're comparing $20,000 to $18,000. $18,000 is obviously a lower number than $20,000. And so a business owner or manager thinking logically can see that the net benefit is that they will increase their net profit by $2,000 by following through on the barter transaction, even though it looks like they're spending $3,000 more on the job. Obviously, there are lots of reasons to barter that are outside of the strict math I'm showing you here. It's a brand new network you're building. It's an amazing marketing tool. The camaraderie that happens between business owners is great. And there's no other way to gain market share as fast as when you throw a bartering component into it. So, even if the barter quote isn't a lot better, there are other reasons to still use that vendor. But in my example, there is obviously a financial reason to do it beyond the other benefits. Now, Let's look at that same example in a multi-department environment. The math still works here, and choosing the $23,000 quote with $10,000 in barter is going to save the company $2,000 to their bottom line. However, for the individual departments within your company, if this amazing barter advantage isn't spread properly through the allocation and accounting, the purchasing department can't choose the barter option unless it's also the lowest price. As I said, barter pay vendors aren't always the lowest price, so if you're not able to analyze and allocate the barter advantage to the right departments, then it'll be more difficult to run your business using barter to save yourself money and get an edge. So, in summary, without understanding price versus cost, your purchasing department would think the $23,000 quote is too high, which makes sense because it looks like it would be $3,000 more expensive than the lowest quote of $20,000. Therefore, they would mistakenly decide to go with the $20,000 quote, when in reality the $23,000 quote, with the blend of cash and barter, really only requires an $18,000 cash outlay, making it the cheapest quote overall. What's amazing about math is, it always works. Now that you understand that there is an advantage, even if the overall price is higher on the barter quote, let's continue moving forward to the next video where I will explain the nitty-gritty of how to work barter pay into your larger business with multiple departments. There is a link to that video below in the description box if you're watching this on YouTube. The video is called Departmental Bookkeeping Part 2 for Larger Businesses. If for some reason you still have questions about how the math works, talk to your barter coach because it is a very important concept for all clients to understand in order to properly barter within the system and maximize your experience.